Welcome back to the Allegheny Northern in N scale, and today we are doing the last video for 2024, and this is going to be a layout update. Okay, so December didn't have as much, it had a lot of modeling time. It didn't have as much train time as I would normally spend because I was working on a custom project for somebody else. And so those pictures will be posted on the channel right after the holidays because I don't want to ruin any surprises. But one of the things that I did do was I did work on this area of the layout and tried to get the track configuration just a little bit more, let's say, user-friendly. So what I mean by that is I had this section of layout that was built up a little bit high, so I ended up cutting into the foam and sort of making a little bit of a valley, left the yard up high where it was, and I'm working on a transition here. It's not done yet. That's obviously not ready for trains, but you get the idea of what's going to happen there. There's going to be a short little incline that'll get me that inch difference up to the other end of the Y. And while we're talking about the Y itself, I removed the Y turnout because it was not the appropriate turnout for that area, and it left me with a funky condition. And so I removed the Y and then realigned that leg of the Y to make more sense and look a little more prototypical. And what that did is actually straighten out the main line so that I don't have derailment issues at high speeds. When the trains were rolling nice and slow, there wasn't a problem, but when they picked up speed, sometimes they would pick the switch just a little bit, and just a little bit of picking the switch means we're on the ground. So, got that straightened out. Now we can run trains the way we're supposed to run trains. Speaking of running trains, we can run trains. So how about that? The trains can make complete loops with me not having to rescue them. So I've worked out a lot of the bugs of the track. Now, some of you are looking at the track going, now it still looks a little temporary. Let's call it temporary, because that's a nicer word than saying it looks like it sucks. Yes, there is a lot of track. Basically, if there's not scenery around it, the track is what I'm calling temporary. So as I do the scene and as I figure out what's going to go where and how it's going to lay out, I will smooth out the track. I will make the risers more permanent. I will have everything glued down and attached, and I will complete the track work. So even here where the big boy is going over, you can see that there's a little bit of a gap under that track. All of that's going to get smoothed out. That's all going to go away. Everywhere that there's some kind of funky condition is going to go away as I get to that area to scenic. And the reason I'm waiting is because I may decide to change the track. One of those cool things you can do with sectional track. So I don't want to lock everything in place just yet because I'm still deciding on, I have a lot of industries I want to add to the layout now that I have all this space, and I don't know where I want to put them because I don't want to jam everything up and make it look busy and clustered. So I'm kind of thinking through that. And in the meantime, I'm running trains. So I'm taking a little bit of frustration knowing that my track is somewhat temporary and that in the very short order as I start working on this scenery, I will be able to clean that all up and get it finalized, and the bumps will be gone, and I shouldn't have any issues at all. Okay, so let's talk about this yard, because this yard was nothing but issues. And it took me a hot second to realize what the issue was. And once I did, it was so simple and so stupid that I am embarrassed to even tell you what it is. So, in the process, I had to disassemble the Cato turntable because I managed to screw it up. Don't worry, it's running again. It's fine. It's happy. It works. Yeah, it's one of those things. Sometimes you just have to be here to see it. So, what I was having an issue with, and as you recall, this section of the layout right here from the yard lead, which is just off to your left. Here, I'll show. I guess I might as well show you, right? This is a show and tell. So my lead here to the turntable, this is isolated. So this was on its own. And it was controlled by an AR1. And the reason being is because trains on the main line can be coming in from any direction, depending on the last way they entered, because we have the PS, AR, XS, or PS, XX, AR, SC, controlling the turnout at the end. So, yeah, try to say all that 5 times fast. But what was my rationale was, if I had my main power, or my normal power coming in off the main, no matter what that was, the AR1 would then make sure that when trains were coming out of the yard, they would align with that phasing. Okay. That should have worked in theory, and probably would have, with the exception that I added this turntable. And if any of you have wired turntables before, you know that in DCC, it's a little bit funky. I mean, it is in DC too, because you're basically turning your locomotive around, right? So it's the same as a Y. You're leaving a different direction in which you came in. Now, for DCC, the phasing doesn't matter, but the way this turntable operates does. And there's these little brass tabs on each rail, and they pull power from the adjacent rail. Okay? So they're unpowered until they move to that track, and then the tracks are powered. Here's where the issue comes in. A lot of the DCC and sound locomotives have capacitors. And so when you put them on a turntable like this, they hold a charge. Electricity, if there's a charge, will energize that capacitor will energize the rail. And if it does energize the rail, then my problem is now I have a turnout, or turntable, that is not in sync with the other tracks that are here. And because I had it wired back to the main line, the AR1 was not fast enough to catch the trip, and so I was tripping out the AR1 and the PS XX AR SC, and the turnouts were going wild. And although it wasn't necessarily shorting out, what was happening was I was getting multiple clicks every time this thing turned around and the capacitor charged and then discharged, and it was a mess. So, here's how I fixed it. So that was the first issue that I had. The second issue I had was somehow I managed to miswire some of the track. And I am still at a loss as to how I managed to do that, because blue and white aren't the same color, and as far as I know, I can tell the difference between blue and white, except somehow in this section of track I was not able to. So once I solved the fact that I was shorting out because, well, I had the phases reversed just in wiring, okay, so I got through that problem. Then I had the issue that I later determined was from the capacitors, and I did this through my fault tree, basically, and trying to figure out what was wrong. So if I took probably the one and only BLI model that I have that actually works the way it's supposed to, and I love this locomotive, just for the record, so I know I've been pretty much trashing BLI for the last 2 months, maybe a month. It might have been 2 months. I don't know. Whatever it is. This little guy is awesome, and I love him. But when he would come over here, I would short out as it went from track to track. But I took my little CSX here. He had no problem. And the reason he had no problem was he does not have a capacitor. He doesn't have sound. He's a basic Digitrax decoder. And so there was no issue with that locomotive. An issue with that locomotive, the only difference was sound and having that keep alive in there. So that had to be the problem. But I noticed it also because even after I took the power off this track, right? So this track is powered here, and then this one was powered, and these were the two that were actually wired backwards somehow. Like I said, I still don't know how, but anyway, the this Broadway Limited with a Keep Alive Paragon 4 in it was sitting here. Well, it was keeping a charge so that once my table passed that, it would short out on the very next track because the little brass tabs would touch here. I guess there was a charge left. Now I had all sound locomotives. It took me way too long to figure that out. And with my background and understanding in electrical things, I should have found it out a lot faster. But I want to call it was the holiday brain, had a lot going on up there, and I just didn't get to the answer fast enough. So, now that I've gotten to the answer, the turntable works again. And how I solved it was I simply ran the AR1 from the bus line so that it doesn't interact with the PSXXAR at all. And what that does is it actually trips out the AR1 a lot more because one, you can have an issue when if you've got a sound locomotive on here that it's going to trip, and then two, when you leave the engine house, you're also going to have a potential phasing mismatch on the main line depending on when the last train entered and in which direction it was heading. So in none of those cases does it short out because we've got the proper equipment in place to handle it, but it's a little wonky. So there are other turntables. If you are powering the bridge and not the adjacent tracks, this is a whole different process, but it's just with the Cato turntable and the way that the bridge is powered from the adjacent tracks that this issue arises. So if the bridge is powered separately, or and that's a different issue now because once again you're rotating your table, so you're going to be out of phase at least half of the table. But yeah, if you're using this, just be mindful of how it's powering your adjacent tracks and how you have it wired, because your right and your left, depending on where you're starting, your blue and your whites, just make sure you've got the right wire to the right wire. Otherwise, you're going to spend hours trying to track that down. And yes, I've started putting some select models back on the layout so I can have the semblance of running some trains, and because now I've got guests that are coming over today actually for Christmas Eve. Yes, that's right, I'm filming the New Year's video on Christmas Eve because this is the last time I'm gonna have time, and quite frankly I don't really have the time. I sort of making the time, but you know, it's the holidays, this is what we do. And I've got this layout pretty much cleaned up other than some pieces that I've still knocked off that I'm gonna glue on here shortly. And I cleaned up this section, kind of got it looking like it's back to normal. It needs vacuumed. Obviously, the signals that were going to go here are all getting reconfigured now because the track configuration is going to be different. So, yeah, this is all got to get reworked. But this right now is kind of a standalone little switching layout all by itself. So I did set my locomotive back on there. It's got its tracks, and I put the buildings back on because they all got knocked off. So I am in the process of getting this all put back to normal and should have it done here right after the new year. And so that's going to be pretty exciting. Let's talk about the new year because there are some changes coming to the new year that I'm pretty excited about. You're going to be excited about. They're all good things, and we're going to make sure that we keep a lot of content coming your way. Oh, the other thing I did is I cleaned up a lot of the wires. I had wire just everywhere. So everything that was temped in that's now running, all of that wire that was dangling under here has been removed. Yes, you're still seeing the turnouts. That's because the DC bus is not connected yet. But I did get that all cleaned up because, holy cow, what a mess that was. And it was driving my mild OCD into orbit. So got that cleaned up. And yeah, feeling a lot better about it. Okay, so I'm just coming over here to grab my throttle because I realize these two trains are going to cross over based on how they are phased right now. And if I don't stop one of them, I am going to wreck, which I would rather not do. So that is the problem when you have your reverse loops cross over each other. And I know you're saying, well, why would you bother crossing over? Well, because if you don't, it would be very easy every time you ran your trains to have two trains heading for a head-on collision. So by having the main one cross over the main two on both reverse loops, it keeps the train, yes, running in the technically the wrong direction on the main line, but it keeps them separated so that they don't run over each other or run into each other. The problem is, though, with this method, they do run into each other if they meet at a crossing. And I'm not saying I had it happen, but thankfully, it was the Bachmann that smacked into the one of the box cars of the big boy train, and so no damage resulted, because it could have been a lot worse if it had gone the other way, or if the locomotives had smacked, or if I had been traveling a little bit faster, because I'm keeping them slow right now since we're all temp. All right, let's talk about what's coming up. Okay, so in the last, I'm going to say 4 to 5 months, I have been filming a ton of content. I think you've heard me mention at least some of it and some of what it was going to be. And I have hours of video that I am going to be editing, and not just this quick, little transition and here's a video and go enjoy it. I'm talking a little more value added, let's say. And those videos are all going to go on the channel's brand new Patreon page. That's right, we're joining the masses, and we are going to have a Patreon page. Now, the YouTube channel is staying right here. We're not going anywhere. There is still going to be content, but there is going to be content on both channels. And before you ask, it is not going to be the same content. So there will be a lot of videos that you will see here that will reference those videos, or you'll see things that were done that maybe there was a special on the Patreon page. I will let you know when that stuff is going to happen, so you can join the channel in time to see what you want to see. We're still going to do a lot here, so it's not like I'm forcing you over to the Patreon page. We're still going to have content here. We're still going to do layout updates here. The stuff that is on Patreon will just be different stuff. So looking forward to adding that. It's going to mean that I have to produce a lot more content, and I'm okay with that. This is something that it's a lot of work, but I enjoy it. And so I thought that, well, if I'm going to enjoy it, I might as well make it worthwhile. So the page is not ready to go yet. The videos are not ready to go. When you're actually spending a lot of time editing and making sure everything is perfect, you're doing multiple takes instead of just rolling through everything, it takes a little bit more time. So it's going to be a 2025 launch, but it's not going to be a immediate launch. Right now I'm looking for first quarter. And obviously, since I have a real job, this is second to that. So my content will be created when I have time allotted for it that doesn't interfere with family time, work requirements, and etc. So Patreon page is coming. The other thing that I'd like to do for 2025 that is going to be sort of a probably second, maybe third quarter of 25 is the channel is going to have some merchandise. So I have been working on the Allegheny Northern logo, and by the way, we are going to repaint some Allegheny Northern locomotives and got some decals for that. So I'm looking forward to doing that process. But yeah, there's going to be some merchandise available. That's going to be a little bit later and a little bit down the road here. So when all that stuff becomes available, I will announce it. And we can sort of travel down that path together. But this year was a really good year for the channel, and we had a lot of subscribers, got to interact with a lot of you. And I for those of you who are serious and interactive on the channel, and you're telling me what you guys are doing and you're telling me what you're working on, I love seeing that stuff, and I love interacting with you guys on that stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to all of that in 2025 as well. And we're going to keep just keep posting this stuff because I'm sure you may have noticed there was a little bit of a discussion going on. In hindsight, I don't think it was a real discussion, but there was a little bit of a discussion going on that, you know, the hobby's dying and DCC killed it, and et cetera, et cetera. And you know, it looked like it was somebody trying to get a rise out of me, which they don't know what I do for a living, so clearly they don't know it takes a lot more than that. But for those of you who are serious modelers and serious channel members, I love talking to you guys. The number of times that I've reached out and said, hey, I got a problem, and somebody's come up with a solution or a potential solution. I mean, that's how I found out about the DCC specialties, the PSXX ARs, the SC versions, and all that. So, you know, that is what this channel is for. It's for you guys to, one, help me out when I need it, and two, for me, hopefully, to help you guys out when you need it. And so I really enjoy being able to have that interaction. So we're gonna do that too. And plus, it lets me see what you guys are thinking about, because I know what I like on my layout, and I know the things that, you know, manufacturers are putting out that I'm interested in. And so to be able to you know, see other layouts and see other people's ideas and what they're into is helpful for me, because it's very easy to get into my own bubble and say, okay, well, I like this, that, and the other thing, and not realize there are other stuffs out there that are cool, because, well, it's just outside what I would typically look for. So there's a lot of layout to build here, and I basically have, in the last few months, just gotten back the lower level. I have an entire upper level that has no track on it. I don't even have the track that I need for it yet. So we're gonna have a lot of building coming up in the next year here. And on top of that, I've already got several pre-orders for new locomotives. I mean, you guys know I have a locomotive addiction. Like, that is my drug of choice right now, is locomotives. It always has been. And so I think in spring, the next round of Scale Trains SD40-2s, they're releasing some NS in high hoods, and I love those models, so I can't wait for those to come out. And then the SD35s, I believe, are still due in January. I haven't checked their site recently, but I think that was the last release date that I saw. And those, I think I've got 4 of them. I know one is the CSX Slug, so I'm looking forward to that, because that's a cool model that's never been made before. And then there's Union Pacific, that is a AB set, and B units in Slug units in N scale. This is like the first one that I've ever seen that's not been scratch built. Really excited about that. And then the last one is, I believe, a Southern unit, because it's in the black scheme, but you know, it's not the green, but it's still that's a sharp looking scheme. I do really like it. So that's going to be, I think, in January, somewhere in there, early winter, late winter, I guess. So lots of stuff coming up here in 2025, and I'm glad all of you can join me here for it. So I'm going to wish you all a very safe and very happy new year, and hopefully that brings a lot of prosperity to everybody, and especially prosperity in the modeling world, because that is what we all share. So looking forward to getting into it with you here, and yeah, keep on modeling. We'll see you here in 2025. The first video out of the gate will be a layout total tour. I've done that the last few years, so we'll walk the entire layout I'll show you step by step what I did, what I'm going to do, and where the next sections are, and we can sort of go through that. And then the second video into January is going to be your modeling New Year's resolutions. So we are going to get into those as well. So, all right, everybody, I am signing off for the year, and next time we see you will be in 2025.